Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. It is Fitness Athlete Friday here on the PT on Ice Daily Show, and I am your host, Dr. Zach Long, coming to you from Onward Charlotte, which is the ICE-powered out-of-network clinic here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm excited today to talk to you about lat strength in fitness athletes, which is something that I don't think we give enough consideration to in all of our athletes. And it's something that we talk about considerable amounts in our live clinical management and fitness athlete course. Speaking of that course, we do have several dates coming up in different locations around the country. November 9th and 10th will be in Los Angeles, November 16th and 17th in Victor, New York. Then starting the new year out in 2020, we will be in Chicago, January 11th and 12th, Houston, February 1st and 2nd, and Vancouver, February 15th and 16th. So if you want to check that course out to really dive deep into your ability to analyze, coach, and correct the movements performed by fitness athletes, check out those course dates at ptonice.com. So today we're talking about lat strength. When I look at the lats as like the glutes of the upper body, where having really strong, powerful glutes does a lot to improve your sports performance, especially in the fitness athlete arena. Now, a lot of times when an athlete's coming to us that's doing CrossFit, for example, and they're having shoulder pain, what are we going to do? We're going to hit their rotator cuff muscles. We're going to work on some mobility. But I think far too often we neglect to load the lats as part of their rehab. And so today we're going to talk about the importance of lats in a couple different fitness athlete skills, as well as a couple of exercises that are really good to use with this population to help bring up weak lats if you find that in an athlete that's coming to you. So first of all, kind of how do I assess for somebody having lat strength or weakness? Well, it's really, for me, it's going to come down to looking at how they perform some of these movements. So let's talk about the key points of performance for some pull-up movements and some other gymnastics movements commonly performed in CrossFit. Well, number one, where I'm going to start is looking at an individual strict pull-up and assessing that. Because what we're going to see a lot of times in an athlete's strict pull-up is that as they're performing it, rather than keeping their elbows in the scapular plane, pulling on the scapular plane, sometimes we'll see individuals that take this really narrow position in their pull-up. So it's almost their upper arms are getting close to being parallel to each other. And essentially, a lot of times that comes down to somebody that has stronger arms and relatively weaker lats. And so they do their pull-up in a position that places more emphasis on arm strength. And that to me is the biggest indicator that somebody needs to work on building their lat strength up, is that elbow position as they pull. Now, when people pull with that positioning, a lot of times we are going to see them coming into the clinic dealing with some elbow pain, medial elbow pain. So they're coming to us with golfer's elbow, essentially, and I think a lot of times it's because of the volume and intensity that they're putting on top of having weak lats and doing their pulling movements with a little bit more of an arm-heavy technique lends to some overloading of those medial elbow tissues. So that's my biggest indicator of somebody having some weakness in their lats, is their strict pull-up positioning. From there, we'll see a couple other positions really get bothered or changed when somebody has some lat weakness. So in CrossFit, the progression is to go from a more static position of a strict pull-up to progress towards a more dynamic movement, and that is the kipping pull-up, where we generate power through the entire upper body, but our shoulders and core are primarily in control of the kipping movement, and we generate that into vertical movement so that we can do more work in less time. More work in less time, if we go back to physics, that means more power. And according to CrossFit, a more powerful workout is a more intense workout and is going to drive more body responses. That's why CrossFit does the kipping pull-up. We've done a number of episodes on the kipping pull-up on previous episodes of the PT on Ice Daily Show. So if you know that you don't understand that movement enough, go check those out or head to the live course or the Essential Foundations course where they cover that. But before somebody goes into doing a kipping pull-up, they need to be able to control the more static position of a strict pull-up. So we, in the clinical management of the fitness athlete division, we do believe very strongly that strict pull-up strength should be gained before going into kipping pull-ups. And we also believe that even once you have a single strict pull-up and you're working on kipping, we need to develop both the quality and quantity of your strict pull-up strength as well as your kipping pull-ups. Those are two skills that need to be continually developed if you're going to be a fitness athlete, but we have to see that strict pull-up first. Far too commonly, what we'll see in CrossFit gyms is the utilization of a kipping pull-up prematurely by an athlete or a coach encouraging somebody to go to that early in order to make up for them having weakness in their lats, weakness in their strict pull-up. And what we'll see in those individuals is as they come down from that kipping pull-up, they lack the strength to control it until they get to that bottom position, and you'll see them really crash down, and you'll see them go to this really passive hang position down in the bottom of their pull-up. And a lot of times those individuals are going to come to you with a shoulder that's pretty flared up because they lack the strength in those more static positions and lack the strength in their lats to be able to control that. Then we'll see that go a little bit further down the development train. So if somebody is trying to get more competitive, they're really trying to get to where they're pushing the intensity of their workouts, they're getting their pull-ups done in a faster manner, we're seeing a lot of athletes progress to doing what's called a butterfly pull-up, which is just a faster pull-up variation than even the kipping pull-up. The issue with the butterfly pull-up is we go into a more abducted, externally rotated position of the shoulder than we do with other kipping pull-up or other pull-up variations, which at times can make people's shoulders more vulnerable. And so if somebody lacks the lat strength to do strict pull-ups and to do several strict pull-ups, and typically what we'd want to see if somebody's doing butterfly pull-ups is that they can do probably 5 to 10 strict under control behind the neck pull-ups. That's going to make sure that they have the strength in those awkward positions to be able to tolerate the forces of a butterfly pull-up. We also want to see that they have the shoulder capacity to do a large volume of regular kipping pull-ups before they progress to the butterfly. But we'll see the same thing. If somebody's doing the butterfly pull-up as a strategy to move away from their relative weakness of their lats, their relative upper body pulling strength, we'll see them crash down just like the regular kipping pull-up, where at the bottom of that position, their shoulder will really, really jerk into shoulder abduction, external rotation, and when you look at it, it just makes you feel a little queasy because you know that they're unnecessarily stressing the shoulder joint. Another key that I'll look for with people in their lat strength in these CrossFit movements is their toes to bar technique. So as an individual performs a toes to bar, we're going to see lumbar spine flexion, hip flexion, and they're going to basically bring their legs, kick their legs up to the bar. Well, for athletes that lack lat strength, they won't have the ability to push their body behind the bar. We want to see their shoulders go from flexion to some extension, and that extension of the shoulder is going to actually elevate the hips towards the bar and make it easier to kick up towards the bar. But we'll see some people with lat weakness that can't push their body behind the bar, and they end up having a really difficult time performing toes to bar or stringing multiple toes to bars together because they end up having to use their abs and their hip flexors a ton more to perform that movement. And really we want it to be kind of an even spread between the lats working, the core moving, the hip flexors moving. And so for individuals with lat weakness, they're really going to put themselves at a disadvantage in a technical movement such as the toes to bar. Finally, when we're talking deadlift clean snatch, the lats are also incredibly important. When I coach the deadlift or the clean or the snatch, to me it's all about how do we keep the bar in the most mechanically efficient position possible? How do we keep it as close to the hip joint as we possibly can? Because if we do that, we're going to be stronger. So our lats roll through the entire movement of the deadlift, of the clean, of the snatch is to keep the bar close to the body and decrease the moment arm around the hip. So if our lats engage in the bottom of the deadlift, it's going to depress our shoulder. It's going to lock the shoulder down into a little extension. That brings the bar's connection to the body, the shoulder, closer to the hip joint, which is going to decrease the hip moment arm. So we really want to see somebody have strong, active lats as they're doing the deadlift, the clean, and the snatch. And if we see the bar drifting away from their body or not sliding up their thigh when it passes the knees, then we know that this is somebody that needs to be encouraged to utilize their lats a little bit more. So one exercise I like to use in that case a lot is some banded hip hinge. So we just do a standard hip hinge with a bar or with a PVC pipe, and we have a band attached to that bar, and then it's attached several feet away to us to a rig or something heavy out in front. So the band is trying to pull the bar away from the body, and that individual must then use their lats and feel those lats engaged to keep the bar, the PVC pipe, as close to the body as possible, and that's a great way to drill that. You can do that with something as light as the PVC pipe. I've had individuals do 200-pound Romanian deadlifts with that band set up. And it's just a great way to teach them to keep the bar close to the body. A couple other exercises that I commonly prescribe to the CrossFitters that I treat here at Onward Charlotte when it comes to really bringing their lats up and their lat strength up if they have a deficit there. Number one, straight arm pull down. So we attach a resistance band to the top of a pull-up bar. We keep arms straight and we take the shoulders from flexion into extension. Keeping the elbows straight the whole time, what that's doing is basically taking the the biceps out of the equation. So it makes for a good upper body lat isolation exercise. We also do a lot of wide band pull downs. So I still have the band attached to a rig overhead, but it's positioned straight out to my side. And now I am pulling my elbow down to my body while I'm staying straight out to the side. I tell athletes, imagine you're sliding your arm down a wall as you bring your elbow to your side. That really wide setup can be really good for getting a lot of individuals to feel their lats engage as they do a pull down or a more vertical pulling variation. The final one that I use a ton is a banded lat row. So I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with a three-point row. So we're bent over, we have one hand on a bench or a box, and we're doing a row with a dumbbell or a kettlebell. Well, I like to attach a band to that. So the band's out in front of the athlete, and the band is trying to pull the shoulder towards flexion. And so that encourages the row to be even more stressful, taxing on the lats. And then I also really like to cue that as we're doing the row, we're thinking of pulling the elbow to the side, not pulling the hand back. Because that little change in cueing, if the athlete's thinking of pulling their hand back, a lot of times they'll turn that into a bicep curl. If they're thinking of pulling their elbow towards their side, a lot of times that will lead to them engaging their lats a little bit more. And this is probably my favorite variation to really work on beefing somebody's lat strength up a little bit. So I hope that was helpful for you. If you're treating CrossFit athletes, make sure you're thinking about lat strength because it's super important for them in terms of their shoulder health, in terms of their elbow health, and in terms of their performance. So it's something that we need to commonly be addressing in this population. As always, reach out to the Fitness Athlete Division if you have questions or you have ideas for future topics for us to do. Hope everybody has a great weekend.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.